Welcome back, everyone. This is Quinn again, and I'm going to show you how to turn your patterns that you made on the circuit tracks from the last video into a more fleshed out song. Chain some patterns together. So let's get into it. Okay, so we still have the patterns from the last video, but it's just one pattern that kind of loops over and over. It gets a little boring after hearing it a couple times. So let's look at some ways that we can extend this into, making more of like a structured song. One thing we can do is we can actually extend the patterns. So right now it's a 16-step sequence, but we can turn it into a 32-step sequence. Let's do it with the drums here. We can turn it into a 32-step sequence if we hit this button up top, where it says 1, 16, and then 17, 32. So now it's lit up orange, and this is the second half of our pattern. We can hit it to go back to the first half. So now with this, we can add more to this drum sequence. So let's go like, and then where is our, so you can see after it does the first half, it scrolls to the second half here. Let's add some more snares. And now we can watch our sequence go all 32 steps. So that's one way we can extend our patterns. The other way is we can go to this pattern menu here. So now these are all of the patterns that we made in the first video. So all these buttons that are lit up, those are the patterns that we made. And you can see there's other patterns here, or there's other pads here that are not lit up. These are all empty because we haven't recorded patterns there yet. So if we try playing it now, there's nothing. But if we do the patterns from the first slot here, we hear the patterns that we just worked on. So what we can do is we can fill the rest of these with new patterns. So let's do something like, let's do a new bass pattern. So we had this one before. Right. Let's go to the next slot here, and we'll go back to it, and this is on MIDI track 1. And now we have an empty pattern again. So let's do something different. Something like that. So now we have a new bass pattern, and it's on the second slot here. So anytime we want, we can switch back and forth. Another thing we can do is we can actually hold the top pattern and then press the second pattern, and now you'll see both are lit up. So now what will happen is when I press play, it will play the first pattern on top, and then once that pattern's done, it will play the second pattern and then go back to the first one. So let's quiet down some of these other tracks just so you can hear it a little more clear. So yeah, as you can hear and see, it's going from the first pattern to the second pattern back to the first. Another thing you can do is, let's turn these tracks back on. Another thing you can do from the pattern screen is you can actually duplicate a pattern. So let's say this pattern here, let's duplicate it. So I'm going to hold duplicate. I'm going to press the pattern that I want to copy, and then press where I want to paste it. So now this one here should be the same. So I'm going to hit this. Now we're on the second pattern, but you can hear, let's mute the rest of these. You can hear it's still populated. And so now, for example, what we can do is we can go in, we can change part of it. Let's do something like, something like this, so it's a little different. And now we can do the same thing where we have one, hold one, tap the other, and now it will go between the two. So already we're starting to get a little more structure in our piece. The next thing I'm going to show you is scenes, and this is an even more powerful way to pretty much, you can make like a whole song sequenced in the circuit tracks. So the way that scenes work, first we're in mixer view, and there's all these dim white buttons at the bottom here. These are all of our scenes. They're dim though because we don't have anything saved there yet. So we actually need to save some patterns to the scene in order for it to light up. So let's do that. So let's pick some patterns. So one trick that you can do is you can set it to a pattern that doesn't have anything on it. So for example, we have our drums on patterns that have nothing. So they're essentially muted. So let's make this like a little intro. We'll just have the two synths playing at first. Just like that. And yeah, it'll chain these two patterns as well. So now I want to save this to a scene. So I'm going to go back to the mixer. I'm going to hold the shift button, and now the pads that were white turn like yellow. I'm going to hold shift and press a pad, and now this configuration of patterns is saved to this scene. So if I go to an empty one, it goes back to just the top row. And if I go back to this scene, it goes to the configuration we just had. So this is now like an intro section, just the two synth tracks going. And then let's save another scene. So now we'll add in the bass and the hi-hats. And we have, oh, that's right, we have a second bass pattern, so we'll put that in there as well. So we're going to save that here. And now if we listen to it, so now that has the bass and the hi-hats. Let's do a third one real quick. We'll just add in the kick. So now all the tracks are playing again, and we'll save this to the third scene here. So now, just like the patterns, we can change them on the fly. And also, just like the patterns, we can chain them together. So just like before, you can hold one and then tap another, and it'll go between the two. And you can also do this with the patterns. You can do 3 or more. You can do as many as you want. So if we do 3 like this, it'll go 1, 2, 3, and then loop back. And then it loops back. So that's how you can chain patterns and scenes together to make a more, fleshed out and structured song using just the circuit tracks, nothing else. With this information, and from the first video as well, you should be able to start making, your own songs and really getting into like detailed compositions using just the circuit tracks.